Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Bellbrook City Council. Today's date is July the 12th, 2021. I'd like to welcome everyone back to the city building. This is the first time we met in person, have been in the city building since March of 2020. And a special big welcome to Louis, our cameraman, who was not needed during our Zoom meeting sessions. But we still appreciate him. With that, if everybody could please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Tonight our clerk is unable to be with us, and so our city manager will be acting as the clerk of council. So Melissa, if you could call the roll, please.
Mr. Hoke?
Here.
Mr. Havens?
Here.
Mr. Greenwood?
Here.
Mrs. Middlestetter?
Here.
Mayor Schwaller?
Here. Can I have a motion to excuse Dr. Dave Van Veldhuizen, please?
So moved, Mayor.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
And Greenwood. Okay. A motion was made to excuse Dr. Van Veldhuizen by Mr. Havens, seconded by Mr. Greenwood. Mr. Havens?
Here. Or yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Hoke?
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mayor Schwaller?
Yes. Thank you. Before everyone, you have the minutes of the last meeting, which is June the 28th. Does anyone have any changes or corrections to those minutes?
None there.
None.
Seeing none, I declare the minutes approved as submitted. Under mayor announcements tonight, I want to talk about a dear friend of mine and a member of this council, our Deputy Mayor, Nick Edwards. Nick passed away on Wednesday, June the 30th. Our thoughts and prayers go out to Nick's wife, Linda, and the family. During Nick's battle with cancer, he was always in contact with the city and continued as a great advocate for Bellbrook. Deputy Mayor Edwards was a great councilman. He was stronger deputy mayor. He knew his role and executed it flawlessly. His contributions to the city are numerous. Those of us in the city who worked with him knew his focus as a councilman was to support the citizens of Bellbrook and continue to make it an even better place for our citizens to call home. Nick has served the city for the past 24 years in various capacities. He began his city service at our planning board for 9 years from 1997 to 2006, leaving that board to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals and Property Review Commission for 6 years from 2007 to 2013. He then ran for city council. Nick was first elected in 2013 and re-elected in 2017. Nick became deputy mayor in January 2020. Nick brought experience from his professional career as a senior vice president at Key Bank. He was also on several major community boards and brought that big board experience to Bellbrook. He was always an independent thinker, open and transparent in his remarks. He was direct and always focused on the best result for our citizens. Deputy Mayor Edwards will be greatly missed but not forgotten. His contributions for the city will always be there for our citizens. Does anyone on council this time have anything to say with regards to Nick? I invite you to do so.
I don't know what we can add except that he is going to be sorely, sorely missed. He had an incredible insight and a gentle heart, and those are two very special qualities, and we're going to miss him a lot.
Well said, well said.
Yeah. Likewise, I think in reading the information regarding his obituary, I think it's important for us to maybe consider planting a tree in the city for him. I'd like to throw that out there as an idea. It's one of his requests.
I'm glad you said that. We're going to have a brick with his name on it at the museum. And Melissa and I just talked a little bit offline on what to do, what otherwise. And the tree thing came up a couple times. So let's see if we can. If our council's in agreement, let's see if we can't pursue that. Mm-hmm. I like the idea.
I just have something I wrote. I met Nick Edwards after we were elected to city council, November 2013. I didn't know Nick before this. We were seated in alphabetical order, and I was seated next to Nick. Over the first few months, I had a chance to chat a few moments before meetings and it didn't take long after talking to him. And working with him to learn that Nick was special. Nick was cloaked with immense knowledge about how things worked, and added to the mix was his big heart. So it is no surprise his work on council helped all of us. Nick was all-inclusive with all persons, no matter who they were. Nick was always focused on our citizens and always questioned if our decisions were good for our citizens. He also supported city staff because he knew great service comes from staff that is supported by our citizens and council. One example of his big heart was postponing increased zoning fees for a while. His concern was because COVID, some citizens may not be able to do some of their projects. Plus, after COVID, he felt people needed a break. Being a council member takes away time from one's family. I would like to thank Linda, Nick's wife, and Nick's family and friends for your unwavering support so Nick could serve the city of Bellbrook. Nick's memory and example will live on in our hearts, and his influence will be a mark on the city of Bellbrook for a long time to come. And Nick, it was an honor to work with you, and thank you for all you've done for us. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Forrest.
And I just wanted to add, although time working together was short and most of it was over Zoom, anytime you encountered somebody in this town and you found out or they found out you're on council, his name was often brought up, and the same sentiment of hardworking, genuine, critical, and truly cared for the city. His presence will be missed.
Thank you. Yeah, he'll be missed but not forgotten. And we'll talk about the tree and pursue that if we can, find a good location to put that with a plaque next to it.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you, council members. The other comment I wanted to make tonight is our last meeting we talked about dispatch and the contract with Green Central. And I think Councilman Havens made the comment that we could probably get services through Greene County. And since then, I'd gone back and actually talked with Brandon Huddleston at Greene County, and the Greene County services are through Green Central, which is where Bellbrook is, also contracted with. The comment I think that Ernie wanted to make, and I'll let him certainly speak to, was that if you look at the fee on a per call basis, it seems like our fee is a little bit higher, and we need to go back and possibly get that adjusted. But in retrospect, we started with Green Central back in 2013. And at that time, for us to join that process, to join their conglomerate, so it was called then, would have required a lot of significant capital outlays on their part to bring in a new console. And essentially, I think as I recall right, Bellbrook needed a half a console to make a total of one. And I think the township needed 1.5 to make a total of 2. So we were able to each take our halves, put it together, and make one participant or one member of Green Central. And that's what we chose to do. And again, that contract was in place from 2013 to 2020. It's now expired as of September 30th. 2020 has yet to be renewed, but I think now is a good time for us to look and make sure we get the best deal for our citizens. We understand the large capital outlay was in the front end of the 7-year deal. The 7-year deal is now concluded, so hopefully we should be in position to maybe negotiate some different rates. So that being said, I think our next move going forward is to contact Green Central, and I will take that on as a to-do, and we will go out and meet with them and see if we can't negotiate an even better contract with Green Central. Or anything to add? Or
I think that's prudent. The cost per call is, I guess, just pretty off in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
There ought to be some room for improvement.
And again, they had a large capital outlay at the front end, and now that that's behind us, and we probably paid for that, I would hope that we can come up with a better economic program. So, thanks. We have no public hearings, we have no introductions, but we do have 6 resolutions. That's a lot.
There's a few.
We intended originally to not have this meeting. We were going to cancel it, and we did put on our website as it being canceled. And then within a couple of days, we had 3 or 4 pieces of legislation that need to be taken care of, and the number obviously multiplied a little bit. So here we are. Okay, Resolution 2021-T, Councilman Hoke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City of Bellbrook, Resolution number 2021-T, a resolution authorizing the city manager to adjust the pay scales of city positions not covered by a collective bargaining agreement. Whereas the City of Bellbrook wishes to adjust the pay scales for city positions which are not covered by a collective bargaining agreement, and whereas the city reviews wage rates for its employees on an annual basis, and whereas the wages of certain employees will fall outside the new pay scales and ranges for certain positions, and the city manager shall have the authority to adjust those specific wages as necessary, including one-time lump sum payments, and whereas the pay scales for elected officials, the clerk of council, and the city manager will not be adjusted, and whereas the city wishes to incorporate the wage provisions into the general personnel policies of the city. Now, therefore, the city of Bellbrook hereby resolves, Section 1, that the city manager is hereby authorized to adjust the wages of certain positions per the attached pay scales and ranges effective August 1, 2021. Section 2, that the attached pay scales and ranges be approved as presented. Section 3, that the city manager has the authority to adjust the wages of certain employees that fall outside the new pay scales and ranges for their positions as necessary, including one-time lump sum payments. Section 4, that this resolution shall take effect and be enforced forthwith.
So this is an annual resolution where the pay scales are adjusted to match the cost of living increases that are afforded to the bargaining unit members. So last year, the increase was 2%. This year, it is 2.5%. And that's also what the bargaining unit is scheduled, both bargaining units are scheduled for in 2022 as well. So with this, we have 16 full-time employees that will be affected by this and 17 part-time employees. And actually, the Miami Valley Risk Management Association just sent out a wage scale survey, and the results of that, and the average was 2.33% for the respondents in this area. So we're competitive with what other municipalities are offering, and the pay scale is attached. And if you will all recall, last year we reorganized some of the service wages and lowered the number of steps that they had. So we did some reorganization last year. This year there was no reorganization or changes other than just raising every one of the rates up 2.5%.
So the scales are all the same and the different grades are all the same, with just that the base rates have been increased. Okay.
Correct.
And we've always done this consistently as far as the same that we've done for the bargaining units? Okay, that's what I thought. Any questions of council regarding Resolution 2021-T? Can I have a motion, please?
I'd like to put forward a motion.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Elaine.
Okay, a motion was made by Mr. Hope to adopt Resolution 2021-T, a resolution authorizing the city manager to adjust the pay scales of city positions not covered by a collective bargaining agreement, seconded by Mrs. Middlestetter. Mr. Hope?
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mr. Havens?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mayor Schweller?
Yes. Thank you. Next up is Resolution 2021-U. Councilman Havens.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution number 2021-U, a resolution authorizing the city manager to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission state capital improvement and/or local transportation improvement programs, and to execute contracts as required. Whereas the city of Bellbrook is applying for a grant to help finance the cost of a capital improvement known as Franklin Street Bridge Project pursuant of the programs administered by the Ohio Public Works Commission, OPWC. And whereas the OPWC is authorized to provide financial assistance for capital improvements to public infrastructure. And whereas the Franklin Street Bridge Project is considered to be a priority need for the community and is a qualified project under the OPWC. Now therefore, the city of Bellbrook hereby resolves, Section 1, that the city manager is authorized to prepare and submit an application to the OPWC for funding in the amount of $445,306 for the Franklin Street Bridge Project. Section 2, that the city manager is authorized to execute any agreements as may be necessary and appropriate to obtain this grant and/or loan funding from the OPWC. Section 3, that this resolution shall take effect and be in force forthwith.
Okay, so applications are due into Greene County for our county to review and make recommendations in terms of which projects they recommend to be funded to move forward to the Ohio Public Works Commission. And that application is due by July 16th. So this piece of legislation was actually a reason why we needed to get together tonight, is to make this deadline. So I did attach a staff report to the resolution that has some additional detail put in this. So the good thing about the timing of this is that this is a very aggressive ask. The number that you see that is on the resolution is the $445,306. That figure also includes a 20% contingency, which is a very high contingency. So it's a very aggressive ask. We put in the figure for the worst case scenario ask because we can't back down the ask. You can't authorize me to ask for $300,000 and then we actually want to go for $350,000. So it's an aggressive ask. That amount may be reduced to gain some more points at the application. So LJB, who is our engineer, is putting together the application for us, and they will try to put together the strongest application that they can with scoring. So that's why this might reduce a little bit. Our ask might reduce because right now it's at a 51% ask. If it could gain us significant points by going to, say, a 49% ask, we might do that. So we want to make it as competitive as we can in the scoring. However, the good thing about this is the timing. You can ask for costs that are within a year of the award, and so since a substantial amount of the project would not be completed by next July 1st, because obviously construction hasn't even started yet, we're still in the earlier stages of this, even though it got moved up. If we do not get this funding this year, we can apply again next year. So that's a good thing. So this could be a combination of grants or loans. I'm not sure exactly what they're going to go for on the application. I think that the thought was this year is to go for the largest grant that we possibly can, and then we could kind of back it down next year if we don't get it. So there's not a lot of projects that Bellbrook ever puts their hat in the ring for through PWC. So I'm hopeful that this could be something that we receive. So Again, it's an aggressive ask, but it might look a little bit different at final application, but I'm excited to move this forward. So we've got the federal dollars that we got from Miami Valley Regional Planning, the $342,000, and then if we can get state for part of our match and reduce our local share down to, almost next to nothing, then that would be great. So that's the plan.
How long will it take us to hear back from the county?
Let's see, it would be November and early 22. Funded applicants would submit application to OPWC, so we would know at the end of the year. We should know fairly soon whether or not the county had selected us to move forward. So that's a big indicator there.
And we have everything in place that we need to get the application due by July 16th?
Yep.
Okay, good, thanks. Questions of council?
How does this align with that grant that we got for the bridge that was recently replaced? That was a different pot of money, wasn't it? That was,
Yes, that was their emergency program.
okay,
Yep.
okay.
And do we have a timeline on the urgency of the replacement of this bridge?
It's not being replaced. It's the pedestrian improvements.
It's just the
Be
pedestrian?
the walkway next to it.
Okay.
Seems like a lot of money for a walkway, but
It does.
Yeah.
it's a state route and all that, so,
There's some pieces to it.
yeah,
It's bridge.
Yeah, as a bridge.
absolutely.
So do they have, when they do their review and scoring, does that do they have a deadline or do?
Yeah, they do. I think that they were taking 4 to 6 weeks for their committee to meet and to go over everything.
It's just one of those anticipation things.
Yep. Yeah.
Hurry up and wait.
Yeah. So, that's all I got.
Any more discussion on resolution 2021-U? We have a motion, please.
So moved, Mayor.
Thank you. In a second.
Second.
Thank you.
Motion was made by Mr. Havens to adopt Resolution 2021-U, a resolution authorizing the city manager to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission state capital improvement and/or local transportation improvement programs and to execute contracts as required, seconded by Mr. Greenwood. Mr. Havens?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Hoke?
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mayor Schweller?
Yes. Next on the agenda is resolution 2021-V. Councilman Greenwood.
Thank you, Mayor. A resolution establishing a new special revenue fund titled Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. Whereas the Ohio Auditor of State has given municipalities the legislative authority to create a local fiscal recovery fund, and whereas the city of Bellbrook will receive proceeds from the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, which are to be segregated into their own fund. And whereas the establishment of the local fiscal recovery fund will allow the city to properly account for receipt of these funds. Now therefore, the city of Bellbrook hereby resolves, Section 1, that the local fiscal recovery fund is hereby established and shall be numbered as Fund 201 in the City of Bellbrook Chart of Accounts. Section 2, that this resolution shall take effect and be in force forthwith. And it looks like it's setting it up for our new money.
Yep, so in order to establish a new fund, it has to take an action by council, which is what this is, and it's required, so this is all we need to do.
Yep.
And this is also the American Rescue Plan Act. It's commonly referred to as ARPA. And there's a lot of money going to the major cities, and you've seen a little bit in the paper about Dayton's allocation. Our allocation was initially $1.4 million, and it got reduced about 53% to about $790,000 once they included the townships into the equation. And we had hoped early on that the state would respect the differences between township operations and city operations, and at worst case, we'd hope that the county money would be reallocated to the townships and not necessarily the cities. But the city of Beaver Creek, Xenia, all the cities in our neighboring area were all reduced by the exact same amount. So what they did at least is fair across the board, although we think we have different expenses than townships have.
Yeah.
Any more comments or discussion on resolution 2021-V? We have a motion, please.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 2021-V.
Thank you. In a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
All right, motion was made by Mr. Greenwood to adopt Resolution 2021-V, a resolution establishing a new special revenue fund titled Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, which was seconded by Mrs. Middlestetter. Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mr. Hoke?
Yes.
Mr. Havens?
Yes.
Mayor Schweller?
Yes. Next up is resolution 2021-W, again referring to the ARPA money. Councilman Greenwood.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution number 2021-W, a resolution by Bellbrook City Council to request the City of Bellbrook's share of American Rescue Plan Act funds from the Ohio Office of Budget and Management, and authorizes the city manager to act as the authorized representative on behalf of the City of Bellbrook. Whereas the American Rescue Plan Act Public Law 117-2 was signed into law by the President of the United States on March 11th, 2021, and whereas the Ohio General Assembly authorized the distribution of funds to the non-entitlement units of local government provided by the American Rescue Plan Act in House Bill 168 of the 134th General Assembly, and whereas the City of Bellbrook has determined to be a non-entitlement unit of local government in Ohio and therefore eligible to receive funding as part of the American Rescue Plan Act. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Bellbrook, State of Ohio, Section 1, that the city manager is hereby authorized to act as the authorized representative for the city of Bellbrook to request its share of funds from the Ohio Office of Budget and Management. Section 2. This resolution shall take effect and be in full force from and after the date of its passage, past this 12th day of July 2021. Now we're asking for the money.
Correct. So the state of Ohio has received funds from the U.S. Treasury, and they have been authorized with the budget bill to distribute that money. And so they opened up a portal last week, and there are a few things that I have to sign off on behalf of the city in order to be able to formally request the funds. So it's alleged that as soon as you get in there and you do that, that the funds are going to be they'll be distributed pretty closely thereafter. So this is the first step in the process, and then it's wait and see how many changes are made before you feel comfortable spending anything.
We'll see how fast, huh?
Yeah.
When was the last time? It was within 2 weeks before the deadline or something they were making?
Yeah, so that was one of the things is we've got 4 years to commit the money. And as long as you have the money committed within that 4 years, you can take up to 6 to spend it all, because some people are going to be using it to construct things, and construction process takes a long time. So you actually have 6 years before you have to fully expend it. So there's plenty of time on this to make some thoughtful decisions.
And so we go through this process, doing the application, the money goes into our account. Do we have to put a separate account? I guess the account 201 that we just
Yep.
set up.
Yep.
And then we hold it until we find something that qualifies, then we go through the process. And
Yep.
And
And then
much
there will
like
be
the-
reporting.
much like the CARES Act money, we got about $450,000. That money started out being very limited on what you could spend it on. And as it went on, there weren't a lot of expenditures that qualified other than I guess just equipment for the pandemic. But eventually they went back and they allowed it to fund wages for first responders, which were by definition deemed to be police and fire. And that's when everyone was able to go through and start spending their full amounts. And that's in large part where our money went to as well. So.
And I think what brought that about was they couldn't determine what part of their wages was expended on COVID. There's just no way of doing that, so they just said all of it, so
In addition to all the PPE stuff, I mean, it made it kind of a great win for the city. And
it did.
any more discussion with regards to Resolution 2021-W? Forrest, as our ARPA expert tonight, can you give us a motion?
Yes, Mayor, I'd move resolution number 2021-W.
Thank you. In a second.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Mr. Greenwood to adopt Resolution 2021-W, a resolution by Bellbrook City Council to request the City of Bellbrook's share of American Rescue Plan Act funds from the Ohio Office of Budget and Management, and authorizes the city manager to act as the authorized representative on behalf of the City of Bellbrook, seconded by Mr. Havens. Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Havens?
Yes.
Mr. Hoke?
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mayor Schweller?
Yes. Next up, Resolution 2021-X. Councilwoman Middlestetter, please.
Okay, this is another annual one. A resolution directing the Greene County Auditor to enter the delinquent cost of weed and grass mowing on the tax duplicate for the properties attached hereto. Whereas the City of Bellbrook, following all applicable procedures contained in the Bellbrook Municipal Code, caused overgrown grass and weeds to be cut on properties located in the City of Bellbrook. And whereas Bellbrook Municipal Code Section 678.03B authorizes the delinquent cost of such action to be certified to the Greene County Auditor to be entered upon the tax duplicate. And whereas the collection of such delinquent costs are in the best interest of the city and its citizens. Now therefore, the City of Bellbrook hereby resolves that the costs that have been incurred for the mowing of grass and weeds that have not been paid by the property owners is $350. That the costs incurred shall be entered on the tax duplicate for the properties attached hereto. Section 3, that this resolution shall take effect and be enforced forthwith.
So as Mrs. Middlestetter stated, this is an annual resolution to attach any weed and grass mowing to the property taxes for any properties which had to be mowed by city staff and did not pay. Typically, we also have another resolution for any unpaid water bills, and we did not have any this year, so we only have the grass and weeds.
Any more discussion on resolution 2021-X? We have a motion, please.
I move that we adopt resolution 2021-X.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Motion was made by Mrs. Middlestetter to adopt Resolution 2021-X, a resolution directing the Greene County Auditor to enter the delinquent cost of weed and grass mowing on the tax duplicate for the properties attached hereto. Seconded by Mr. Hoke. Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mr. Hoke?
Yes.
Mr. Havens?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mayor Schweller?
Yes. Thank you. And finally, resolution 2021-Y. Councilman Hope.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City of Bellbrook, Ohio, resolution number 2021-Y. A resolution by Bellbrook City Council authorizing recommendation to accept the fifth amended joint Chapter 11 plan for reorganization of Purdue Pharma LP in the United States Bankruptcy Court of the Southern District of New York, case number 19-23649. Whereas the City of Bellbrook filed a proof of claim in the Chapter 11 plan of reorganization referenced in the caption of the resolution, the bankruptcy, pertaining to distribution of opioids by Purdue Pharma that was a significant cause of the national opioid crisis that led to mass addiction and overdose deaths that affected both the state of Ohio and the City of Bellbrook, and whereas a mediated settlement proposal was reached by the creditor constituencies in the bankruptcy, including public and private creditors, and whereas the municipal attorney and the city manager recommend that council vote to approve the fifth amended joint Chapter 11 plan of reorganization of Purdue Pharma bankruptcy settlement, as reflected in the master ballot in the bankruptcy and incorporated herein by reference, and now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Bellbrook, State of Ohio. Section 1. Council hereby accepts the recommendation of the city manager and the municipal attorney and authorizes approval of the bankruptcy settlement on behalf of the city or on or before the July 14, 2021 deadline. Section 2. The city manager and the municipal attorney recommend that city council authorize settlement of these bankruptcy creditors' claims on the terms set forth in the bankruptcy settlement. Section 3. The Bellbrook Council hereby directs the city manager to vote to approve the bankruptcy settlement on behalf of the city on or before the July 14, 2021 deadline. Section 4. The city manager and the municipal attorney are hereby authorized to take all steps necessary to resolve these matters in accordance with the terms of the bankruptcy settlement. Section 5. This resolution shall take effect at the earliest date allowed by law.
So attached to the resolution is a memo that was provided by the municipal attorney that summarizes what this is and what this does and gives a little bit of backstory on this. So I'm sure you all have received things in the mail, maybe from your cell phone provider, that says you could be part of a class action lawsuit. This was the result of that. So a number of states and municipalities are entering into this bankruptcy case as it relates to Purdue Pharma. So Purdue Pharma is the manufacturer of OxyContin, and that's one of the prescription pain medications that has been at the kind of center of the opioid addiction. So this bankruptcy plan, this reorganization plan, is the product of 6 months of mediation with Purdue Pharma and the creditors, and so it's resulting in a settlement of approximately $5 billion in value that's provided to trusts, each with a mission to fund abatement of the opioid crisis. So if this plan is approved, Purdue Pharma will cease to exist, and a new company will be formed and governed by a charter that will require that it deploy its assets to address the opioid crisis. And so the confirmation of this plan, so everybody has until July 14th to say whether or not they approve the plan, and then confirmation plan of the plan hearing will be held on August 9th of this year. So it's a quicker turnaround here. So the trust funds must be used for opioid abatement, and the state of Ohio actually is number 6 in line for the settlement. So Ohio's share of the $5 billion will be about 4.3%, or $215 million to the state of Ohio. So what does that mean for Bellbrook in terms of amount? It all depends on how many municipalities are going to be a party to this bankruptcy plan. So $215 million is quite a bit. So we'll just have to wait and see how that will shake out once everybody is able to approve the plan by the 14th. So they did take the total funds, and the way that they divided them between the different states is they based it upon a formula that takes into account each state's national share of prescription opioid sales, overdose deaths, population, and persons suffering from pain reliever use disorder. So that's kind of how Ohio got to be number 6, which is really highlights just how much of a problem the opioid crisis is with the state of Ohio. So again, we have until the 14th to approve the plan and be part of the case, and the chance to have part of the share of the $215 million that will be parted out to the state of Ohio.
And so this motion is all we need to do, and then as I understand, Coolidge Wall will make sure our vote gets processed and handled correctly?
Yep.
Okay. Any discussion from council on resolution 2021-Y?
I'd just like to make a comment. The state of Ohio was hurt pretty bad from opioids. There was news programs. They went into some of the counties and explained some of the people that were really hurt, and and they finally got the Sackler family involved, and they're disposing their assets. And this is a good thing. A lot of people were hurt.
Sackler's not disposing all of their assets.
They didn't get them all. Yeah.
They're gonna live a comfortable retirement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any more comments on resolution 2021-Y? We have a motion, please.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And a second?
A second.
Thank you.
The motion was made by Mr. Hook to adopt Resolution 2021-Y, a resolution by Bellbrook City Council authorizing recommendation to accept the 5th amended Joint Chapter 11 Plan of Reorganization of Purdue Pharma LP in the United States Bankruptcy Court of the Southern District of New York, case number 19-23649, which was seconded by Mr. Havens. Mr. Hoke?
Yes.
Mr. Havens?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mayor Schweller?
Yes. Thank you. Under old business, the only item we have is city manager search update. We continue to receive resumes. I believe we got one more in this afternoon. We've met once in executive session to start reviewing those resumes. We will meet again tonight in executive session, and we hope to commence interviews as early as next Monday night. Although, as everyone may understand, in the summertime, we have a lot of scheduling issues and a lot of vacations. And unfortunately, this would be a lot easier to do on Zoom than do in person, at least the initial interviews. But since we have to do them on person, we're going to schedule as soon as we can and as soon as we can have a quorum of council available. Anybody else on council have any comments on that?
No.
But again, executive session tonight at the conclusion of this meeting. New business. Anyone have any new business? We do have a city manager report.
Just a few updates that I have. The Streetscape Plan, that plan is at full steam ahead. The service director and I met with the head of the Clangers Group just last week, and we received the first draft of the Streetscape Master Plan. It's really exciting. They really have done a good job of capturing some nice opportunities, and without making any kind of major changes. They were some very impressive recommendations. So we went through it all page by page, and they're going to continue to refine that. And they said that the final draft should be ready near the beginning of September. So we do have two options for that. We could let the community have a little bit of input on that before it comes to council for final approval, or council could approve the plan as written, and then it could go to the community for kind of an unveiling. But the input process, they'll give a couple of different ideas for like some gateways and some signage and things like that, just to get folks' opinion on it. So we do have kind of that choice to be able to make, but I can always follow up with community affairs and see how they would like to move forward with that. But it's very exciting.
Good. Glad to hear it.
The fire department is maintaining their Class 2 ISO rating, which is really exciting. So on a scale, the rating is on a scale of 1 being the highest and 10 being the lowest. This puts Bellbrook Fire in the top 7% of departments in Ohio, and there are only 5 departments in Ohio that have a Class 1 rating. So great honor to the Bellbrook Fire for maintaining that, and congratulations to all the crew. The November levy, all of the necessary documents have been filed with the Board of Elections as of July 7th, and that will be on the November ballot. So I created a staff report, which is attached to the packet, for the creation of I want to get the terminology right, the formation of a ballot issue committee. So I had linked the Ohio Secretary of State, Ohio Campaign Finance Handbook that has the relevant chapter on this. And then I put some basics in that staff report. I did have a typo on the second page. It says, how do you choose the committee? It's how do you close the committee? So I noticed that when I was making the copies today. So just to clarify that. Wilmington Dayton Road is going to have a closure this week. So it will be closed from Centerville Station to Moss Oak from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. each day. There's several different repairs that are going to be happening along that stretch, but emergency traffic will be able to pass through, and they tried to make sure that the closures happened at a time when it was going to miss rush hour, morning, and evening traffic, so that's good. Unfortunately, the Be Well Bellbrook event will have to be canceled. We didn't have anybody to give it to. The race is still going to happen. The farmers market is still going to happen. But the actual Be Well Bellbrook part of it, the health and wellness component to that, we're going to have to cancel it this year, just without a volunteer group to take over. It had nobody else to go to. So the race will still go on in the farmers market, like I said, and then hopefully somebody can take that over next year and bring it back bigger and better. One of the things, another thing that is also added into the packet is a staff report on adding a holiday. We talked last meeting about Juneteenth, so that's just for your guys' consideration for the next iteration of the personnel policy manual. You have that information. And finally, this is not in the staff report, but because it kind of happened kind of at the tail end of the creation of the staff or of the city manager update. I reached out to Greene County Regional Planning about maybe contracting a zoning person through the year's end. Without having a planning and zoning person, it's been incredibly stressful on all of us up here because we've all had to pick up the slack. We're all researching permitting questions and processing permits, and it's been a significant stress on the staff. So I know that in the past, Greene County Regional Planning has contracted out a person to be able to handle those types of things, and it would just be very basic functions such as researching our code to answer questions of people that call and email, processing the permits for us. And I thought maybe 10 or 15 hours a week could be huge. So I am in early talks with their new executive director about what that might look like. So I don't know if that will be hashed out prior to my departure, but that's going to be that's a need that needs to be filled, and we kind of need to put a stopgap in there since there's going to be a lot of transition happening, and it's that work is not going to stop. So that was kind of my thought, was to see what that might look like, and then we can go from there. Maybe we choose not to do it. Maybe it turns out to be a good thing. So
What's our backlog look like now? Do we still have a lot of unresponded to requests, or?
I mean, we are staying caught up. I mean, it's just, it stops other work from being done to keep those things moving, because we want to make sure that we're extending good customer service to the community by, allowing people to get their projects done and things like that when they want to put fences up or pools in, things like that. But it's just, it's taken a lot of time, and to have a person that we can dedicate to that at least 10 or 15 hours a week would be a really big help.
From my perspective, they can follow up with the communications and find out what we can do, what they have available, and see what it is.
I saw that come through today, being on the executive committee, that request. I guess the big challenge with Greene County Regional Planning is their executive director was their planner, and we're interviewing a new planner tomorrow, and he's like coming from out of state, so not sure. I was really surprised they said that they'd be able to help us pick up slack.
Sounds like they've got problems too as far as bringing new people in. Yeah.
So is there, just out of curiosity, is there any other organization or thoughts on maybe where we could get some slack picked up?
Well, they were my first call, so I was waiting to see what they said, because I know that they have done that for other communities in the past. So I was waiting to see what they have to say before I went anywhere else.
Okay.
Is Miami Regional Planning a possible?
They could. I could definitely reach out to them. They would be the next, obvious choice.
Probably be the next one.
They've got a lot of staff.
Yeah.
I mean, if they said they could do it, then maybe they can. I just was really surprised they offered.
We haven't been holding anybody up, but because you've been putting off things and getting that done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have stacks of permits that are not being addressed. We definitely don't want the community to suffer. So we're working through it. I mean, we stop what we're doing and we help, but it's hard. It's hard.
I know it's, when you start a project, we're the first step, and there's a lot of follow-on steps. So if you're doing a project, you're going to have delays, but I hope we don't have it here.
Yeah.
That's
And now's the time of year, a lot of activity going on too, so.
there is.
I think like what Ernie said, if they said they can do something, let's find out what they come back with, then let's see what happens. I like Greene County better than Miami Valley, only because they're more attached to our processes and the inspections and so forth and everything, so see what can happen, okay?
That's good creative thinking, though. Appreciate that, Melissa.
Anything else? Anything else for your report, or
Nope, that was it.
any questions of the city manager report? Okay, moving on, committee reports. I think tonight we need to address the fact we have a vacancy on Finance Audit Committee, Community Affairs, and also the Council Liaison to the BZA PRC. I know everyone on council sits on, 2 committees? Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if anyone wants to move to take on an additional committee. I know that we'll have an election in November and the names and faces may change. And I have not been on any of the committees. I think through the charter I'm permitted to be on committees, is what Pam had told me. I would be more than happy to step into Nick's seat on the committees he's on right now, so everyone else stays as is. Otherwise, if someone wants to be on more than 2 committees, I would certainly defer to them and give them first right of choice where they want to go.
I'm okay with that, Mr. Mayor.
Is that okay?
I'm okay, yeah.
If you're okay with that, yeah.
Okay. Then just insert me in the places that Nick Edwards was, and I will take on those responsibilities as well. Getting into the committee reports, the first up is service.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things. Paving crews will be working on the street paving program this week, and weather is a possibility this week. I guess there's possible rains and stuff. So be patient if they're working on your street. And just to kind of expound on Melissa reported on the Wilmington Dayton road closure. I thought congratulate Ryan for the way he planned this. That's a busy road, Wilmington Pike. Between Moss Oak and Centerville Station Road is steep. The work they're being done, he consolidated all the work to get it done in 1 week to avoid closing it and to help the residents there to be able to get back and forth. And that should work out well. So tree trimming, potholes, berm repairs, all that stuff's going to be done at once. And that way that road can get back into service. And it's also safe by doing that, the crews and the people in the area and the traffic, it'll work out well. So thanks, Ryan. That's all I have.
Thank you, Forrest. Safety.
No update this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Finance audits, anyone to speak to that, or?
I can mention that an exit audit is gonna be scheduled.
Okay.
So the audit turned out to be a clean audit, there were no citations, and, an exit audit conference is trying to be scheduled, so.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Community affairs.
Okay, we still have a vacancy on the Old Village Review Board. We have one applicant, and we have also a vacancy on the BCA, and we have an applicant for that. With all the Nick was on the Community Affairs Committee, so that and vacations and timing, we just didn't schedule interviews, but those are high on my priority to request getting those scheduled. City managers, the more critical
Absolutely.
interview process. So
Absolutely.
we'll delve into the community or committee interviews after we get the city manager settled.
Okay,
And
sounds good.
That's all on that.
Thank you. We don't have a clerk update, but she did give us the 2022 budget schedule. It looks like we're starting the budget for 2022, October the 11th, followed by meetings on October 25th, November the 8th, introduce it on November the 22nd, and a public hearing on December 13th. So once again, that's a lot of time to be committed to the budget in the period from October till December, but once again, the nice thing about it is that this will again be probably the 5th or 6th year that we've always done it on time and not had to do it as an emergency ordinance, which is what I think is fair to the citizens. So, anything else that you might add from the clerks as acting clerk?
No?
Okay. This brings us to open discussion of council. Alphabetically, Forrest.
Thank you, Fire Department, for keeping your rating. That's hard work. That's support from the community and council, and that's what you end up with. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ernie.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple quick questions that I just have remote concern on. The gas pipe that they're putting down along Franklin Street. I notice they're going under Franklin and under Lakeman, not disturbing the road. Is there any type of like point of contact in the event the road caves in or something like that down the road?
We have a whole booklet of all the contact people.
Okay, great. And then the BZA and Old Village Review Board applicant status, is that closed out and we're just waiting, or is that still open for applicants?
We can accept applicants, it's just not posted.
Okay.
The posting ran out.
There's no deadline or anything that we have to deal with?
No.
We're just not gonna do that until after new city manager, okay? Yeah, last thing is just a big thank you for the fire department for maintaining that status.
Thanks, Ernie. TJ.
Yeah, just I'll add also thank you for the fire department for maintaining their ISO rating. And then the only thing, it's more of a fun and personal note. I mentioned it last time, just to reiterate. There is a football rally for the all football players in the community from youth all the way up to high school. It is this Saturday, 2 to 5 at the high school stadium. You needed to buy tickets in advance, and I believe tomorrow is the deadline. I could be wrong on that. But I think it's catered, so they were trying to get a head count in advance. So that's all I have. Come out and support the everybody who is active in that community. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, TJ. Elaine?
I too thank the fire department. ISO rating of 2 helps keep fire insurance costs down. And I appreciate the work, that it is a lot of work to maintain that rating. I happened to notice a sign, and I should have written it down because it just went right on through my head. Something about a
Police-a-palooza, and it
Okay.
dawned on me when
But I
TJ.
didn't write down the details. If anybody knows what that is, it's coming up.
It's July 17th, and it's 12 to 4 at Centerbrook Church. And they're going to have a petting zoo, kids' activities, dunk a cop. And 100% of the proceeds are going to go to the Community Support Center. So
Okay.
Centerbrook Church, the 17th, 12 to 4.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's a project of the community support.
Yes.
Center. Okay. I just saw the sign coming in, and I thought, oh. Yeah. Okay, that's it. That's all I have.
That dunk a cop will probably get a lot of traction.
Yeah. Who's gonna get dunked? Do you know?
Well, there's been a few names tossed around, but who actually ends up on it, I'm not sure. I'm going to show up to see it, though.
If it's a hot day, I think they'd all like to have
Yeah.
a turn.
Yeah.
And I have nothing more to add other than it's good to meet in person again. It's a different dynamic. It's kind of funny that it's kind of unique and unusual for us after about a year and a half. The whole process was a little bit more different for me than what it had been, and I really got into that Zoom thing, and it
Yeah.
worked out pretty well. But it's nice to be back in person, and maybe at another meeting we'll have more in the audience tonight. We have absolutely, I guess, just one, a city employee. So, Michaela, do you have anything you'd like to address the council with tonight?
I do not, thank you.
Okay, thanks. At this point in time, we're going to go into executive session. We have no one here for public comments. So this will be the termination of our meeting for the viewing audience. There will be no business transacted at the conclusion of our executive session. At this time, could I have a motion from council to go to executive session to discuss the employment of a public employee?
So moved.
Thank you, Elaine. In a second.
A second.
Thank you, Ernie.
All right, a motion was made to enter into executive session to discuss the employment of a public employee, and made by Mrs. Middlestetter and seconded by Mr. Havens. Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mr. Havens?
Yes.
Mr. Hoke?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mayor Schwiller?
Yes. And with that, the viewing audience, we thank you for watching and look forward to seeing you again later this month.